Good afternoon and welcome to another day of our installments of questions on Jewish life and culture, Jewish life and tradition, things about Jewish life that we do or experience, but not necessarily do we remember or know why we are doing so. So today's question, another installment, is why do Jews eat cholent on Shabbat? We know that Jews eat cholent on Shabbat. Why do we eat cholent on Shabbat? So before we dive into the actual question of the day, I just want to take a moment to welcome you all. Thank you for tuning in and being here with us. Also would like to ask you, if you don't mind, to please comment, like, share. Let us know where you're watching from, that you're watching, and if you're enjoying, if you hear something you like, something that you connect with, something you enjoy, or just let us know where you're watching from, and comment where you're watching from, or give us some likes, some hearts, some thumbs up, whatever it is, sad faces, whatever it is, you can give us some love on the video so we know that we are, you are involved and you are enjoying or not. Please be a part of the conversation. You could always write in the comments. And before we get started, I want to just give a plug to our Kabbalah class that we are offering in the fall semester. It's going to be a totally online class. You get 3 credits. So it's a part of Judaic Studies program at UCF. You can take it and you'll get 3 credits and you'll learn about Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, not just in a theoretical way, also some practical implications and how Kabbalah, living with the Kabbalah way, you can change your life, and would love for you to be a part of it. So the course code is JST3210. That's JST3210. You can go to the course catalog at my.ucf.edu and sign up and be a part of our Kabbalah class this coming fall. I know there's also a way, even if you're not at UCF or you're done with school, there's also a way you can reach out to the registrar's office and you can audit the class, kind of take the class without getting the credits. I believe many instances that's available for free as well. So check that out. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be not a specific time during the week, but you could just log on throughout the week. There'll be deadlines, but about a week per unit, and there'll be about 13 units over the semester, about a week to 9 days for each unit, and you'll get to learn a lot about the Kabbalah and things like that. That said, let's dive into our subject of the day. So why do Jews eat cholent on Shabbat? So many Jews enjoy, maybe you've never heard of cholent before, many Jews enjoy a slow-cooking stew that is served usually for Shabbat lunch. Although in the Lipsker house, my kids love eating it for breakfast too, but that's usually served for Shabbat lunch. And Ashkenazi Jews eat what's called cholent. Cholent is usually made with meat and potatoes and barley and sometimes beans. It's delicious. And Sephardic Jews make a little bit of a spicy variety. They call it chamin. Chamin literally means hot. And they usually make it a little bit spicier. They maybe throw some rice in, some chickpeas, and sometimes dumplings. However you make it, and whatever you call it, whether you call it cholent or you call it chamin, cholent is always a hot stew dish that's placed on the fire or on a crock pot on Friday before Shabbat starts, and served on Shabbat afternoon in Jewish homes throughout the world. So why do we eat this particular food? Where does it come from? What's its story? What's the background? But first, they say a story of a family that went to visit their Bubby's house, and Bubby served dinner, and the young grandson takes the food and dives right into the food and starts gobbling up the food. Parents say, "Hey, Maishi, what are you doing? You gotta wait for the blessings. Wait. Gotta wait for the prayer. We make a prayer before we eat the food." So he says, no, we don't. So he says, what do you mean, parents say? We always make the prayers before the food. So the young boy looks up at his parents and says, yes, but Bubby actually knows how to cook, so we don't need to pray. Right? But anyways, the concept of Shabbat foods, delicious foods, cholent. Yesterday we spoke about gefilte fish, today we'll talk about cholent. So, we are not the only ones who think cholent is delicious. There was a fellow by the name of Harry Hein, who was a Jewish man who was born in Dusseldorf in 1797. Unfortunately, he did not receive much of a Jewish education, and in 1825, Harry converted to Protestantism and took the name Heinrich. At the time, the Prussian government had been passing some discriminatory laws against the Jews. For example, a law excluding Jews from academic posts. So Heine had an ambitions for university career, and he would later say that his conversion was a ticket into the admission into the academic European culture. He was to become a celebrated 19th century German poet. So Heine was enamored with cholent, that a full 25 years after his conversion, he wrote about this Shabbos dish in his famous poem about Shabbat. When he wrote about cholent, the words burst with his words burst with praise. We'll pick up and I'll read you some of his poem where he talks about the prohibition to smoke on Shabbat. And he writes, this is from Heinrich Heine, a poem called The Princess of Shabbat in the Standard of Book of Jewish Verse. She denies her lover nothing, save the smoking of tobacco. Dearest, smoking is forbidden, for today is the Sabbath. But at noon, as compensation, there shall steam for thee a dish, that in very truth divine is, thou shalt eat today of shallot. Shallot, ray of light immortal. Shallot, daughter of Elohim. So had Schiller's song resounded, had he ever tasted shallot. For this shallot is the very food of heaven, which on Sinai God himself instructed Moses in the secret of preparing. So one can sense how Heine, who converted out of Judaism, retained nostalgic thirst for what he left behind. Indeed, this is consistent with what we spoke about a couple of weeks ago in the fact that a Jew, even if they think or want to leave their Judaism, kind of really stays inside of them. You can never really get rid of your Jewishness. However, let me just assure you that although his poem is saying that God taught Moses the recipe for cholent on Mount Sinai, is that we have no record of God instructing Moses how to prepare cholent. In fact, cholent is a work of human genius. So what is the origins for cholent? And what is the purpose of eating cholent? Where does it come from? And what's it really all about? So this goes to the laws of Shabbat. And in the laws of Shabbat, one of the laws of Shabbat is that it's forbidden to kindle a fire on Shabbat. In the book of Exodus, chapter 35, verse 3, the Torah tells us, "You shall not cause a fire to burn in any of your dwelling places on the day of Shabbat." So one way of reading this verse could suggest that you have to make sure that all your fires in your houses are extinguished before Shabbat starts. And indeed, there was a group of Jews called the Karaim, the Karaites, who rejected rabbinic tradition, and they understood the verse in that exact way, is that on Shabbat, you're not allowed to have a fire on in the house. And therefore, they would have a warm meal on Friday night, But on Shabbat day, because you can't have any fires on in your homes, they would eat cold food. Traditional rabbinic tradition and the interpretation of the verse is that you're not allowed to kindle a fire on Shabbat, but if you do have a fire on Shabbat that was started before Shabbat, you can't add any wood to the fire, you can't add to the fire, you can't make the fire bigger, you can't fan or stoke the flames of the fire, but you can put a fire on before Shabbat and allow the fire to go and burn throughout the entire Shabbat. So you can put something on a flame before Shabbat starts, as long as it's fully cooked before Shabbat starts, and then leave it on the fire until you want to eat it, and then when you want to eat it, you take it off the fire and you can serve it. So there's twofold process of why we ended up with cholent. First of all, as we said yesterday and other times, there is the concept of enjoyment of Shabbat. Shabbat is supposed to be a day where we're supposed to enjoy ourselves. And obviously, I'm sure you wouldn't, if you're anything like me, you'd rather eat, it's more enjoyable to eat it's more enjoyable to eat a hot dish of meat than it is to eat a cold dish of meat. And therefore, for pleasure purposes, because the mitzvah of karasa l'shabbos oneg, to have pleasure, to eat pleasure, foods that give pleasure on Shabbat. So therefore, in order to honor Shabbat and to eat things that give you pleasure on Shabbat, there is a concept of eating a hot meal. And one of the ways to have a hot meal is by having something that can sit overnight, like a stew, on the fire, and to be delicious, and the longer it cooks, the tastier it is. And like this, you can enjoy Shabbat on Shabbat for Shabbat lunch and eat a tasty dish, and there you have it. You have cholent. So that's reason number one. Reason number one to eat cholent is on Shabbat you're supposed to have pleasure and eat foods that give you pleasure, and eating a warm meal is much better than eating a cold meal. So we have cholent to enjoy Shabbat. Another aspect of this cholent is also to demonstrate this exact concept that we follow rabbinic tradition, not like the Karaites that read the verse, you're not allowed to have any fires in your house on Shabbat, and therefore you eat cold food Shabbat day because you can't have any fires on. No. By eating cholent, it became accustomed in many homes to eat cholent, to eat a warm dish on Shabbat lunch, precisely to demonstrate the fact that we follow rabbinic tradition. That in Judaism, as we know it, rabbinic tradition, the oral law, the laws the rabbis taught, the way the rabbis interpreted the verses, which is passed down from generation to generation, is the correct way of what Judaism wants from us and demands from us. And therefore, eating cholent on Shabbat not only is a way to eat a food that brings delight, that allows you to enjoy Shabbat better because it's a warm dish, but also it demonstrates our following of the rabbinic tradition, that we don't interpret the verse that you're not allowed to have any flames in your house on Shabbat. Rather, you shouldn't kindle or grow or add to any flame on Shabbat, and that is what the verse really means. So we make and eat a cholent not only because it's delicious, not only to partake in pleasure on Shabbat, but also to demonstrate our belief in the authenticity of the oral tradition passed down to us by the rabbis. So Heine was not so wrong himself after all. There is some link between cholent and what Moses received at Sinai, the tradition that he got and the way to interpret the verse of the Torah. So just to summarize, we eat cholent to partake in pleasure of Shabbos. Meat is generally a source of pleasure, and most people prefer hot food to cold. So we eat cholent. We fulfill the mitzvah of eating foods that give us pleasure on Shabbat. In addition, having a hot food on Shabbat and not just Friday night, when you could still have just taken it off the flame before Shabbat started, but having hot food on Shabbat day demonstrates our belief in the authenticity of the oral tradition that the Torah allows a fire to be lit before Shabbat and to stay kindled throughout the entire Shabbat, and therefore we can have warm food on Shabbat. So that wraps up today's lesson. Here you have it, why we eat food cholent on Shabbat. It's not just about the fact that it's delicious, more so it proves a point and the authenticity of the oral tradition. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of today's class. And tomorrow we'll be back with another episode. And the question we'll be analyzing tomorrow is, why is a God-fearing person praiseworthy? Isn't fear a negative emotion? Why isn't love enough? So when we talk about tradition or God, we say you should be God-fearing. Why can't we just be God-loving? Isn't fear a negative emotion? And shouldn't we rather focus on loving God instead of being afraid of God? What's this fear about? Why isn't love enough by itself? Okay, so tune in tomorrow. I'm going to try to stick to the proper time, which is 12:30. I think it's a better time for most because it's lunchtime. So we'll see. But sometimes things happen and we can't be live at 12:30, so we go live whenever we can. But please tune in tomorrow. Again, tomorrow's question, why is God-fearing person praiseworthy? Isn't fear a negative emotion? Why isn't love enough? Thank you for tuning in. And before we go, I just want to bring your attention to our annual summer raffle. Our annual summer raffle is a fundraiser that we do to support Jewish life on campus at UCF, to support Shabbat dinners to go, mezuzahs going up in the dorms, and many other programs that we do throughout the semester, as well as supporting these classes and making them possible. So please, if you can, please join our summer raffle. If you already joined, thank you so much for being a part of it and helping us be there for students and creating a warm and awesome Jewish life experience for your students at UCF in Valencia. You can win some awesome prizes like $10,000, 2 tickets to Israel, $1,000, $500, and $360. And you're an automatic winner because if you buy a ticket, you are an automatic winner of a mitzvah in the fact that you're bringing smiles and joy to so many thousands of Jewish students on campus at UCF in Valencia. So you can buy tickets at jewishucf.com/raffle. If you can't buy a ticket yourself, perhaps you could encourage family and friends, Bubby, Zadie, uncles, aunts, parents, children, whoever it is in your life that can buy a ticket and do a mitzvah and support Jewish life on campus. Again, thank you for joining us.